Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another episode of Build-A-Figure. This is just a series where we look at custom head sculpts, outfit sets, we do kit bashes, you name it, but most importantly, we build figures. Now today, this particular custom has been in the works for a while. It was actually supposed to come out earlier on in the series, but sometimes when it comes to customs, things take longer than expected, and that's what happened with this one. I chopped and changed a few things, I made some modifications, and finally I'm happy with where all the parts and pieces are at. So much so that it's time to assemble. Now, instead of looking at the body first, we all know that the most important thing when it comes to 1/6 scale figures is probably the head sculpt. This was done by V.Collectibles, aka Vince, link in the description below to his Insta, and painted by Rodman. So, as you already know based off the thumbnail, today we're building a Christopher Reeve Clark Kent custom. And this head sculpt, dude, I cannot tell you how happy I am with how this turned out. The sculpt itself, I think the likeness is uncanny, that looks exactly like Christopher Reeve. And while the glasses and hat aren't detachable, I'm perfectly fine with that. This is how I'm going to have him in reporter mode, fully displayed all the time. Rodman has even added some veins down the side of his neck. There's some 5 o'clock shadow, there's a decent level of skin texture, but my favourite detail is how much life there is in the eyes. Rodman adds this subtle lighter hue at the bottom of the eye, and that just catches the light, making this head sculpt look so freaking real. The glasses are nice and glossy, and they do insert into the hairline, so it looks like the arms are extending over his ears. Don't worry, this is definitely not the last you're going to see of this head sculpt in this video. Of course not, because we do have to assemble the entire figure, and then we'll look at the head sculpt on the body. Speaking of the body, the one I decided to go with is by Worldbox. This is their AT020, I believe. It's relatively narrow in terms of the frame, and the proportions are really good. But the main reason I went with this is because the neck connector is adjustable. So if you find that this post is a little bit too long or short for your custom head sculpt, you can go ahead and change that out. Just make sure you're hitting this area with a hairdryer first to warm it up a little, then you can remove the neck post and pop in one of the other sized versions. There's some skin texture sculpted in, but there isn't a ton of paint here. That's okay for this particular custom because we won't be seeing much of this anyway. Maybe a little bit of the forearm poking out from the shirt sleeves. TBD. I don't mean to introduce the next item as we move on from the last, it just seems to be working out that way. This blue shirt is actually from a Tony Stark custom outfit set. It's a very lightweight fabric and it's a little bit dirty down the bottom because I have used some tape in the past to hold this down onto the body. You'll see what I mean. The buttons are black, which is not ideal. The shirt that Christopher Reeve was wearing in the film was this light shade of blue, but it didn't have black buttons. Normally, I would remove them and then pop different ones on there, but I think the tie is going to cover it this time, so we should be fine. I have stitched some clear buttons onto the collar because they are supposed to be there, and for the life of me, I could not find a 1/6 scale shirt in this color with the buttons on the collar. So I had to do some stitching work myself, which was relatively easy to do. I did splurge a little bit on the tie, just because I wanted it to be perfect. Not close enough, not similar to the screen use item, perfect. And that's why I reached out to Dinoya, who by all accounts is the best 1/6 scale tie maker. I have popped Dino's links in the description below, although it's all right here on the back of the card, so if you do want to scan that QR code, absolutely go for it. Dino was a joy to work with. I sent pictures of the actual screen used tie, and he just matched the pattern to perfection. This is 100% accurate. It's pre-tied for me, so thank goodness I don't have to fiddle around doing a 1/6 scale Windsor knot. You all know I hate that. There's even a printed tag around the back, and the material just feels really high quality. This is going to drape very well. This is a quick little one. It's a very cheap 1/6 scale briefcase. This is actually from a DID figure, but I got it off AliExpress. It arrived pretty quickly. It is made of pleather, but that's okay. It's just going to be held by him. It's not a big deal. There is some real metal hardware on the front and up top, And the shape is close enough. It's not quite like the tie where I wanted it to be perfect. This should work for my purposes. Same thing with this raincoat. It's like a Burberry jacket. I also got this off AliExpress. It's not meant to be worn by him, although it's possible. I could potentially put this on him. This is just going to be rolled up and tucked under his arm, like the J&D statue. Speaking of J&D, I keep setting it up, and I really don't mean to, I promise. This is a J&D style display base by Facepool. You can buy this separately on AliExpress. It costs around $20, I think, but I got mine with the Facepool Punisher. The detail on the surface of the road is beautiful, and there's a manhole cover. It does work as Metropolis. There's nothing that screams Punisher here, in my opinion. It's got this J&D style beveled edge and a waist clamp, which I don't love, but it does mean he's going to be nice and secure, and this base just looks bloody beautiful. Okay, now y'all are going to think I'm really crazy. I have two different options for the suits. I have a Toy Center one, which I think is the one I'm going with, and I also have a Vor Toys one. I think both of these also off AliExpress. I could have splurged here and gone for like a Tory box suit, but that would have been way too expensive, and I wanted to keep this custom, low budget if possible, although certain things were more expensive than others, like the tie and the head sculpt. Now, the suit does have blue pinstripe to it, and I like the shape, but I don't think this is the one I'm going to go with. I feel like Toy Center is the more accurate option. Now, the packaging is relatively straightforward. It's a brown cardboard box, but as you can see, it's a little bit darker, and there's a pocket square. It does come with the vest, the jacket, the pants, the white shirt, which we're not going to use, a belt, as well as some shoes. So if you wanted to not go with the blue shirt option, this, yeah, it'll work. I did think about going with seamless forearms. I reckon they're overkill here, because you can't even really see the wrist pegs when he has the business shirt on. I still love these, and most of the time I will go with the seamless forearms by Worldbox. This time, not 100% essential. So I'm going with the Worldbox Newly hand sculpt for the hands. The gestures are quite natural. There's even some painted fingernails with the cuticles, and some vein work and some shading for the knuckles. These, right now at least, I think are the best 1/6 scale hands readily available on the open market. I specifically make mention of the open market. If you wanted to go custom for way more detailed hands that look even more realistic, that is also an option. It just depends on your budget for each custom. Now, this is the whole tape thing I was talking about. I like to add a strip of duct tape or electrical tape underneath the shirt and then onto the underside of the crotch area. Because when you start to pose him, you do want the shirt to be locked down and in position. Some custom shirts even have a piece of elastic underneath for this very purpose. This, if it doesn't have elastic, will work just fine. We're a good chunk of the way through now, and don't forget, when you're popping the shirt on, make sure you put the tie into the collar first before you try and install the head sculpt, because trying to get the tie around the sculpt, then under the collar having to flip it up, it's a pain in the ass. Trust me, tie first, then head sculpt. The pants went on just fine, and they break at pretty much the exact spot I was hoping they would on the shoes. It's just that the shoes are a little bit cheap and nasty and glossy looking. So maybe in the future this is something that I'm going to upgrade. We'll have to wait and see. Also, when it comes to the belt, I don't think it's necessary because there's already a thick piece of Velcro for the fly. When you add the belt onto the front, it makes it very, very bulky, and we have multiple extra layers to put onto this body before we call this custom done. So I'm not going with the belt for my one. That's fine though, because with the vest on, you're never going to see the top of the pants anyway. I hated every second of doing this around the front of the vest. If there's one thing I despise more than tying real 1/6 scale ties, it's real 1/6 scale buttons. And being the lazy sod that I am, I thought, ooh, maybe I'll grab the other vest. Maybe that one's Velcro or the little metal clips perhaps. No, this one's real 1/6 scale buttons as well. So you have to loop each individual button through each individual slot, and there isn't a ton of give. It's very fiddly, it's very challenging. You are going to be here for a while if you're attempting this same custom. I do want to say thank you to Helen, aka 6 Scale Shiro, here on YouTube. She's a fellow Aussie and YouTuber, of course, because she used a piece of string, threaded it through the loops, wrapped it around the buttons, then pulled each one through. If I hadn't have seen that video prior to doing this, I would have been pulling my hair out trying to thread these 1/6 scale buttons through. Normally, I would just brute force it and try and shove them through. That is not the way to go. Use Helen's method. It is definitely the easier option. It's at this point that before we finish assembling everything, popping the hands on and the accessories and whatnot, we want to do a fit check. Make sure the neck connector is the right length, make sure everything slides under the various layers as it's supposed to, such as the collar. I want to tuck this underneath the vest to keep it in position, and situate the tie correctly. As you can see, there's a little bit of bunching at the collar. But right now, I am loving the way everything is looking. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. We made this just now, you and I, on camera. We put this thing together and it worked. Customs don't always work, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. Going off AliExpress and buying a random outfit set and commissioning a tie and a head sculpt, you hope that you can achieve what you have in your mind's eye, but it doesn't always happen. It did for me because this is my perfect 1/6 scale Clark Kent. Dude looks like a shrunk down mini 1/6 scale J&D statue. And that's the look that I was going for. The proportions, how the head sculpt looks on the body, the briefcase, heck, even the display base. It's all complementary. They work super well together, and I cannot wait to put this guy in the display case. Up close and personal, over the moon. This outfit set could have not worked on the body, the head sculpt could have turned out terrible and not fit well. I'm just glad that it all worked out. There is a massive element of luck when it comes to customs, because you don't really know how everything is going to look fully assembled until you fully assemble it. This head sculpt is perfect for me. Might not be perfect for you, and that's down to personal preference. For me, it turned out so much better than I was expecting. That smirk is pure Clark Kent from Superman 1. It's a little bit goofy, a little bit cheesy, and that's exactly what I was going for. There's this turtle shell print on the glasses that's subtle, but you can see it under closer inspection. And because they didn't go with lenses on the glasses, there's no distortion with the eyes. Which is a plus because those eyes are outstanding. Adding that subtle shading at the bottom, that light highlight, makes him look so much more lifelike. This head sculpt makes this custom, no question. And being able to pick what color I wanted the hat and how I wanted it to be painted, including some veins on his neck, that level of customization just normally wouldn't be possible in 1/6 scale. Now the neck is maybe a little bit short with the jacket on. That's not the fault of the head sculpt or the body, that's just because the jacket rides up quite high. That works for this particular figure because this is a 70s style suit. It has to be big, it has to be boxy, and it has to be bold. And it's all of those things. The shirt I would normally tuck into the vest to maintain the collar, to just hide it a little bit. I think it works sticking out this time because I do want to see the buttons that I so painstakingly sewed onto the tips of the collar. The tie lays exactly as I wanted it to. The vest hugs the body, but it does bulge out at the fly because that piece of Velcro that holds the fly on does add a bit too much padding around the front. If only they went with some other kind of connection method, rather than Velcro, because it can be quite bulky. The jacket is fully lined on the inside, and thank goodness for that pocket square, which is accurate. And I'm totally fine with not going with the seamless forearms, because you can't see the wrist pegs anyway. The pants break at the exact length they're supposed to, and the shoes, still not happy with the shoes. They're the one thing that I think I do need to upgrade. I want something with more texture, more detail, and I do need to add some socks, because if the pants ride up, say he's in a running pose about to change into his Superman outfit, you will start to see the ankle pegs as the pants ride up. For a quick side-by-side comparison, this is an area where I think I can improve my custom. Having Clark Kent be a little bit shorter than Supes is okay because Christopher Reeve did modify his posture and straighten his back and puff up his chest as the Man of Steel versus Clark Kent, where he's slouched forward a little bit, making him seem more meek. So you can get away with a little bit of a difference. This is not that. There is a significant height difference between these two. And I'm not just going to throw bigger ankle extenders on my Clark Kent, because that would make his legs overly long and throw off the proportions. Right now, I'm happy with this. In the future, I might go ahead and pick a different body. Who knows? Wrapping up on my custom 1/6 scale Christopher Reeve figure, based off his appearance as Clark Kent in Superman 1. This turned out way better than I was expecting. To tell you the truth, I was worried that it was going to be a massive fail. It isn't. I'm just so excited to put this guy in the display next to Superman. I have been waiting forever for a 1/6 scale Clark Kent. And this one hits a little bit close to home. My mum actually introduced me to superhero films, and her favorite superhero of all time was Christopher Reeve's Superman. Whenever we went to see a new superhero movie or we saw Superman played by another actor, she was like, yeah, he's good, but not quite as good as Christopher Reeve. And unfortunately, we lost her a few years ago, so this particular custom I poured my heart and soul into. This is for you, Mum. I hope that wherever you are, you're smiling down, you're enjoying this particular custom because I did it for you. I'm sorry I got a little bit sentimental there. This figure, it means a lot to me, and I'm so happy that it turned out as well as it did. The head sculpt, a masterpiece by Rodman and V.Collectibles. Thank you, lads. You killed it. Link to their stuff in the description. The suit off AliExpress works perfectly. The World Box body underneath it fills out the suit. And the tie? Pièce de résistance. It's a simple thing. It's a small thing. But it's the small details that you want to get accurate. And thanks to Dinoya, that tie is perfect. Nobody can debate that because it is 100% screen accurate, full custom. So at the end of this, like I said, a very personal episode for me, and my favorite episode of Build-A-Figure to date. If you are heading down to the description, check out all the links from the amazingly talented people who helped me build this, and also, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.